Tamang kaalaman, tungo sa malayang kaisipan. Ako po si Ferdy Isleta.
Ang kultura ay susi sa kadakilaan. Ako po si Annie Luis.
Isang oras lang ang kailangan. Ako po si Renena Peñas. At ito ang
Padayon Presents the NCCA Hour. Sulong na!
Padayon, the NCCA Hour. Sulong na!
Ang ating kultura ay isang salamin na katatanawan ng pinakadiwa at pinakakaluluwa nating mga Filipino bilang mamamayan at bilang bayan.
Mga kayamanang ating minana, di lamang ang mga bagay na ating nakikita o nahahawakan, kundi pati lahat ng bagay na pinagmumulan ng ating pagkakakilanlan bilang tao, kasama ang mga katangian nagpapatibay sa ating pagkatao bilang Filipino.
Kaya kami samahan sa linggo-linggong paghahanap sa mga sagisag na nagpapaalala sa ating kadakilaan at kahusayan bilang mamamayan. Mga bantayog ng lahing kayumanggi na sa ati tumatangi at ating tunay na maipagmamalaki.
Tara na't ating ipagdiwang ang tunay na Filipinong karanasan dito sa
Sagisag Kultura TV.
You know, in Negros Occidental, the moment you wake up, you will know that you're in a laid-back area, but it's a fast-moving province as well.
Negros was called Negros mainly because of the Spanish. When they arrived, they saw the natives, indigenous people, were small, dark, kinky-haired. The Spaniards did not have a name for these people. The Spaniard thought they looked like negritos, small negros. Negros is black creature. From that, the Spaniards decided to call the island Negros Island. Since then, it's been called that. Our history goes hand in hand with the history of the rest of the archipelago. But Negros had a unique development from the 1700s on, especially just 100 years later, the 1800s, the sugar industry became very focused by industrialists, businessmen, and so on.
In Negros, well, sugar, and everything sugar.
Instead of quarreling with the Americans who had just come into the Philippines, as with the rest of the country, the history of the Philippines, American War, led by Aguinaldo, the Negrenses chose not to join the conflict.
May feeler na ipinadala yung mga taga-Negros sa mga Amerikano sa Manila that they would want to talk to the government of America through the representatives. And number one in the agenda is the sugar industry.
The Negrenses decided to make friends with the Americans. This is a very interesting historic aspect of Negrense history vis-a-vis the Philippine revolutionary movement, because we were also we were friendly with, with the rest of the Katipunan, but we chose, the Negrenses chose to befriend the Americans.
That started the talk about what could be done. And then later on, if we want to see the long shot of this, it ended with the Laurel Langley Agreement, and then the Negros sugar quota in America that made Negros very rich. Kaya during those times, may kasabihan na yung pera sa Negros pinapala at pinipiko.
Practically, we are number 2 in terms of tourist arrivals next to Boracay. When visitors come, they notice right away Bacolod, Talisay, Silay, and Bago. We have twin city tours because of the heritage houses, the museums, the landmarks, even our provincial capital tells us a lot of stories of the past and the present, of course. And then, aside from that, we have a lot of farms, and farms not only for fruits, vegetables, and livestock, but it tells us the story way back to the sugar industry, of course, the contribution of the sugar industry to the way of life of Negrenses.
Negros is into organic farming also. That's why during the time of Governor Alfredo Marañon, and even up to now, we are pushing Negros to be the organic capital of the Philippines. And really, we have organic gardens here. In the past, our tagline for tourism is sugar and more. Now it's now land of surprises. Well, we are expecting that there will be more surprises here because other than sugar, as the root of our economy, we are into tourism and food. No? We have our fine beaches.
We can boast of both in the culinary setting, of course. There are the piyaya or the suman. And when you speak about Negros, you also go visit churches, century-old churches, and then you also have to visit the houses, heritage houses, where there are a couple of museums around town, and you also get to attend festivals the whole year round, from the barangay down to the cities and the municipalities, because Negros is the province with the most number of cities in the country today.
Pagpapahalaga sa kultura ng isang bayan ay isang dakilang layunin. mamamayan mayroong mahalagang bahagi at dapat gampanang tungkulin. Sa kanyang lupang sinilangan na sa kanya'y nag-aruga at nagmahal, kaunlaran ng kanyang kultura sa mamamayan nakasandal.
Kaya sa mga lupon na mga mamamayan na walang sawang magsilbi, sa kanilang mga bayan sila'y dapat ipagmalaki. Sila ang tunay na mga ehemplo sa makabagong panahon. Sila ang nagpapatibay sa mga kulturang ugat at pundasyon.
I put together the Nagros Cultural Foundation with Lindy Locsin as our first chairman. First, we put together the Balay Negrense. That was the first project of the Nagros Cultural Foundation. And then we put up the Nagros Museum. Our centerpiece and our major audience should be the children, the youth. Why? Because they, in turn, will grow up and become more culturally heritage conscious. Then, the artists of Negros, all kinds, visual, performing, and everything, because Negros is very rich in culture. And of course, the public, and then the people who come in to learn about Negros. So we brought concerts, we brought, you name a name concertists, they've been here. Raul Sunico, Mariel Ilusorio, it's like madrigal singers, UP singing ambassadors, anything that was worth bringing, we brought to Negros. Ballet, you name it. All the ballet companies have been here more than once or twice or 3 times. I would like Nagros Cultural Foundation to remain the storehouse and the icon for the wealth of our culture and heritage for Negros. So we keep encouraging people to help us, to come and see us, to give their suggestions, and to make guests come.
Conceived in 1987, by the Nagros Cultural Foundation, the Nagros Museum was founded in 1996 and opened originally in the provincial capital of Negros. But in 2001, it transferred to its present location, which was the former agriculture building of Negros Occidental.
When we were still in the old Capitol building, our executive director thought of a fundraiser. It's called Sponsor a School Visit to the Museum. And we went to every public school in Negros, and I'm proud to say that all of them have been here for free. And everybody was asked to write something. We took pictures of them, and then they distributed this among themselves.
The objective of the museum is to promote and sustain a deep understanding of local history, culture, practices, and ecology, especially for the children and the youth of Negros and also its other visitors.
We accepted the fact that there is no collection, no archaeological pieces. Therefore, what we did is we told the story of Negros through the artists. The first thing they show you are 9 big paintings of local artists of the history of Negros, which were vetted and corrected and researched on by NCCA. So it's a true story.
To make the museum exhibit or the museum experience relevant, especially for young audiences, Museum Education Program or the Museum Education Department concocted what we call as the Panakayan sa Negros Museum. So this is a multi-experience tour for young people wherein they have different activities, veering away from the usual tour guide, talking about artworks. The tour incorporates activities like storytelling sessions. They have a treasure hunt game as part of the tour. There are performances. At the end of the tour, they have abubuts or giveaways wherein they bring a piece of the museum with them when they go back to their schools or their homes. One of these grants that we got from NCCA is HANAS, the Training for Second Liners and Cultural Workers. This is in collaboration with Colegio San Agustin Bacolod and the West Visayas Association of Museums, wherein we had 6 tracks of different types of workshops in the arts, weaving creative curriculum, which was designed for teachers. So Through Hanas, we were able to train, I think, more than 1,500 participants in our workshops. The second one that we had, and we were able to implement this for 2 years, is the Mugna towards a sustainable cultural development of Negros Island in partnership with LGUs throughout Negros. Activities for Mugna included workshops in the localities. So we had workshops for weavers, for mothers, for children, for teachers, for young artists, and that was on site. We would go there, we would bring a team of resource persons to give like a 3-day, 4-day workshop. And then parang series siya that they would come up with an output and merong final showcase. Lihok is a culture and arts festival. So basically, it's a convergence of different, again, all of these partners that we had in Mugna, we brought them all together to showcase their works. Another audience development project that we were able to do with NCCA, which was quite big because this was Visayas-wide, was the Panakayon promotion of Visayan culture. So this was done through an online platform. We had a vlog competition and we also had a photo essay competition spread out throughout the Visayas. And it moved forward because parang we made use of Facebook likes, clicks, and shares. So that was equivalent to some points, plus also the quality of the works. So that was very successful on our end because we reached more audiences online. Sanay Guru is a project with a different organization called the Performance Laboratory. So it's kinda a lot of partnerships between different institutions working together in partnership with NCCA. It's simultaneous workshops on the 6 disciplines which are offered for the special program for the arts. Creative writing, drama, dance, visual arts, music, and media arts. So it's a call for participation for teachers all over the country for a 5-day training for continued professional development. So they develop skills on how to teach these different disciplines in the classroom. And all of these activities, we were able to sustain through the Speakers Bureau program of NCCA.
Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao, paghahabi at paglalalay, mga tradisyonal na sining na hinding-hindi papanaw. Dito sa Negros Occidental, kanilang patuloy na pinagyayaman, minanang kakayahan, patuloy na pinauunlad sa kasalukuyan.
Ang mga bayan na gumagawa ngayon ng hablon is Valladolid, Dayaw Weavers Association, at saka yung isa is Kabangkalan. Ang hablon, galing pa yan sa Miagaw, Iloilo. Tapos yung mga magulang namin, yung mga lola namin, yung nanay namin, inadapt yan. Naghanap ako ng mga weavers dyan sa amin at saka gusto rin nila. Tapos yung that time na nagtulong din ang government namin, yung LGU namin dyan sa Valladolid, na parang patuloy namin yung gawin namin na weaving. Sayang din kung yan na weaving ay mawala sa amin. Kasi daw parang love na namin gumawa ng ganyan. Itong Dayaw Weavers, nakilala ito ng Nagros Museum. Naglalagay kami dito ng mga product namin at saka sila ang nag-adapt sa amin, makatulong rin sa amin. Kagaya ng Mogna at saka yung isang Hanas. Sa amin sa Negros, yung tinatawag namin na loom ay teral. Yan ang aming ginagawang, dyan kami nagwe-wave. Tapos yung teral namin ay malalaki.
Ang hablon ay may iba't ibang disenyo. Mayroong simple lang na isang kulay o tinatawag na plain. Mayroong ding checkered o quadri-quadrilyo. Mayroong guhit-guhit o stripes. Mayroon ding tinatawag na abstract. Dahil mayroong 4 na apakan sa paghahabi, ang disenyong ito ay tinatawag na four-knees.
And sometimes siguro in 2012 or 2013, I experimented on textile as a medium for my art practice. I engaged myself with the textile community. That's why I was able to meet with the weavers of Valladolid, incorporated their textile into my artwork. I came to Bacolod. I attended one of the NCCA talk or seminars here at the Nagros Museum, and then I learned about the grants, the individual grants program of the NCCA. My first proposal was entitled Panahi. So it's a creation of new works on contemporary textile and needleworks. So these are my work output for the proposal that I made. With Hanas, I was tapped by Miss Tanya to give a workshop. I gave a workshop on the basic elements and principles of design. And then I also did a workshop on basic simple needleworks. The NCCA was able to help me create the works and then put it out there for the public to see. And malaking bagay siya because it's an outlet for me to express myself.
Tradisyonal na tela, minibigyan ng sariwang anyo. Katutubong kasuotay nilalapatan ng bagong disenyo. Ito ang atake ng isang negrenseng henyo, isang malikhaing revolusyonaryo.
Actually, bata pa lang po ako, my play would be inside the tailoring of my grandmother. Then nung college, while doing the nursing course, I'm designing clothes for my classmates, for school activities. And then later on, after I passed the board exam, I decided not to pursue as a registered nurse, but chose to be a fashion designer. Starting off as a fashion designer, I focused on menswear. So later on, after 4 years, I was introduced into Filipiniana fashion under the mentorship of Sir Gino Gonzalez. And this is a project of the Cultural Center of the Philippines. Talking about the textile of Negros, it's very colorful, it's very earthly color. So ginagawa ko lang, medyo i-mix ko lang siya with bright colors, with modern fabrics, just to give another life to the traditional fabrics. So right now, we are trying to reinvent patterns and colors for Negros Occidental just to make it more attractive to the youth na pwede gamitin ng mga young. So let's go into the functionality of the patadyon. So the patadyon would be just a tube-like that is wrapped around the waist. So if I were to create a modern patadyon, or if I were to create a revolutionized patadyon, it would still be on the functionality. It would be still a skirt, a tapis, or just add a little bit of modern fabrics, or just drape it around the waist. So ang tinuro sa amin is, as long as we did the sleeves correctly, we execute it correctly, whatever the shape, the silhouette, it would still reflect on the Philippine terno. What I really want to push is wear a Philippine terno on formal dinner, formal event, and try to give that nationalistic pride because it creates a different vibe of a Filipina wearing a terno.
Sa visual na sining, Negrensa'y maraming pambato. Ipinamamalas ang likas na galing ng artistang Pilipino. Sa paghagod ng kanilang pinsel at pagpipintura sa kambas na blanco, kanilang binubuo isang panibagong mundo.
AAB started 44 years ago, July 1975. It's the first visual artist group that was ever formed here in Bacolod.
Ang AAB does end kasi dati AAB lang. Ngayon, ang target namin, i-ano namin yung local artist na magiging buo. No, nung pumasok ako, 1 year pa lang ako sa grupo, nahirapan kami mag-gather ng mga local artist dito. Ngayon, ang sabi ko sa dating leadership, sabi ko, kaya hindi pa man siya nakalabas sa grupo, sabi ko, gawa tayo ng paraan, makatawag ng pansin sa mga baguhan. So, nag-umpisa kami sa sketching, portrait, nude, tsaka plein air. Nagtuturo kami ng dito lang kami sa kabila, nagtuturo kami paano makatawag pansin sa mga baguhan.
So that's why we have this AAB Negros, so that para makuha lahat ng mga upcoming or mga inspiring visual artists all over Negros.
Target namin na ikutin namin itong buong Negros sa plein air na activities. Para kasi ang artist kasi pag walang ganyang practice, nagiging abstract tuloy ang ang diretso niya. Pero pag-usapan natin ang umpisa, parang hindi sila marunong sa umpisa kung ano.
Main objective ng AAB is, for now, is more active artists, unlike before. Na yes, they are all active also, but more sa mga developing artists all over Negros. Like that, yung activities namin ngayon is the Sunday afternoon sketching, which is the more on exercises, pencil on the spot sketching, portrait, nude, and figure drawings.
Binigyan kami doon sa art district ng isang area na ginawa naming gallery. So nagpapasalamat kami dito sa museo na parang hinakap kami. Malaking tulong nila sa amin.
Mas marami na ngayon more engaged arts. Unlike before na mga artists naghahanap ng mga galleries, most likely sa mga hotels and malls. So malaki yung influence talaga ng pagko-combine ng mga artist years, and isa pa yung pagpupunta dito ng mga Manila and Cebu artists also in Iloilo.
I prefer to call myself a regional painter because I love painting Negros. We would go out, just searching for places to paint. We would go around the city. We would see these vendors, and then I would approach them, and then I would ask them what their life, and then I would ask them if I could take a picture of them because I'm gonna sketch them, paint them, and that way also get to know their lives. Because they would also tell you how they raise the children and all that. And if you can capture that, that's what makes your painting alive. I wanna show the people how beautiful Negros is. How it's not just the tourist spots that you should see. There are other places that if you're willing enough, you can just go there. Because as artists, we're also surprised. Sometimes we would get invited into these places and then they would show us tourist has hindi pa nararating ng mga tourists, but it's really beautiful. It's so simple and so beautiful.
Siguro masasabi ko sa sarili ko is more on docu-painting artist. Kasi sinasabi ko yun kasi lahat ng mga makikita ko around Negros here, as what you see on my paintings outside is more on Negros scenes. Ito, mga tapasero, sakada, yun, at saka yung nakukuha or nai-inspire akong ipinta. Inspired ako sa father ko kasi he's one of the pioneers here who used the coffee mediums. So, isa sa mga maganda kasi sa coffee is, well, mura na medium. At saka, ang ganda ng effect. Sepia siya. Parang, pero yun na yung challenge kasi dun sa coffee kasi medyo sepia, one color lang. Pero, mahirap i-tame compare on watercolor.
Pag artist daw ang isang tao, mas maganda kung anong kultura nandun siya, mas maganda kung yun ang ipakita niya. Kaya ako, kung saan ako nakatira, saan ako nag-i-stay ng matagal, doon ko kumuha ng isang subject. Kaya nandito na ako sa Negros, kalabanan ng subject ko, parang mga taong kubo. Pag makuha ko na yung damdamin nila, parang lumilipad yung utak ko eh. Sila agad yung nadudrawing ko eh.
Sa buong lalawigan, iba't ibang grupo sa sining ang inyong makikilala. Kanilang eksperto sa sining ay iba-iba. Iba-iba man ang adhikain, layunin ay pare-pareho pa rin, talento'y para ibahagi at dapat pagyamanin.
In the beginning, our goal is simply to conduct workshops every Saturday. There were a few of us, art students, and after we graduate in art school, you bum around and do these things.
Nag-attend po ako ng isang creative writing workshop. So, nagsimula pong magsulat ng isang poetry or binalaybay. Mas sanay akong gumamit ng words, mas sanay akong gumamit ng mga letra para maparating ko kung anong gusto kong parating.
It evolved through the years. At the moment, our goal is, or should I say, the vision is to develop as human beings, to become responsive, to become productive, and to be more creative in dealing with different issues and concerns of life, and empowering ourselves through arts.
Usually po, nung lagi kong sinusulat tungkol po sa community namin, which is dinala ko rin po sa paggawa ko ng mga play at paggawa ng paintings.
There were a lot of exhibitions that we do every year in different areas here in Bacolod, and we share the creative outputs of our members. We also do a cultural interaction with foreign students coming in here. We've been working with Ms. Tanya Lopez and the Nagros Museum. And then we started like a lot of activities here, like exhibitions, performances, and a lot of collaborations.
Paano mo siya ipapakitang ka-inspire yung sitwasyon mo na nandun ka sa slum area? Paano mo siya mapapa-inspire yung mga taong nanonood doon na intindihin at makita kung anong mas maganda sa lugar mo?
Vinley Creatives is just it's a platform for human development, to develop emotionally, intellectually, artistically, socially, those total development.
Artist Development Program because the museum sees itself as a hub that provides a space in many ways. So it can be physical space, creative space, a space for people just to interact and work with each other, wherein artists can develop, express, showcase their works through exhibits, performances, bazaars, festivals, crafts, or different activities. So this is done through many workshops that we do, and this is where the NCCA partnership is highlighted. Kasi through all of these grants that we get from NCCA, we are able to push these programs that we have specifically for artists, like young artists, second liners, or mid-career artists who want to still pursue their passion. Kaya lang, they got sidetracked by work and other things. We also collaborate with the Performance Laboratory for the Curis Theater Festival and with Teatrocon. Teatrocon is the theater network. So that's composed of local, school, community theater groups all over Western Visayas. We have around 12 to 15 active members coming from Negros Occidental, Iloilo, Capiz, and Antique. And every year, we come together to share our theater experiences and to showcase our works to our fellow theater artists.
Performing arts is part of the Negrense lifestyle. I think isang factor din is very supportive ang family, ang some local government units, and of course the community. Ang maganda dito sa Negros, nagtutulungan yung mga artists. Once one artist invites everybody to pumupunta, they support and what they can do. Cagayan Dance Troupe, we decided to focus more on contemporary dances. Meron din kaming program on folk dance, jazz, and so on. But we feel na mas dyan kami strong because maybe partly because of my theater background. And so we were lucky enough na when I took over the directorship, we were invited by the NCCA Dance Committee to be always a part of this program in Sayaw Pinoy and in the International Dance Exchange. Nagkaroon kami ng chance to perform sa Bangkok Theater Festival, and we hope that with this breakthrough, we will be able to circuit na rin other countries.
teatro ay higit pa sa pag-arte, pag-awit at pagsayaw. Mga itinatanghal na obra ay naglalayong magpalalim na mga pananaw. Higit pa sa paghahandog ng galing at pagbabahagi ng mga talento, adhikain ng teatro, mga manonood ay mahawakan at tumalim.
Last 1980, during the fall ng sugar industry, maraming mga workers na nag-aklas. At during the aklas ng mga workers strikes dito, strike doon, sa mga asyenda, sa central, nakita ng mga workers na kailangan nila ng isang cultural group. So nabuo yung Teatro Obrero. Under talaga siya sa National Federation of Sugar Workers. 1985, during the peak of the anti-Marcos dictatorship, lahat ng mga district sa Negros, merong welgang bayan. An Escalante has one. Kami dito sa Bacolod, merong Victorias, merong Kabangkalan, merong ganyan. Sa Escalante, hindi namin rin expect. Merong mga gitgitan, mga sakitan, pero sa Escalante yung worst. Kasi after ng binomba sila ng bumbero, hinagisa ng tear gas, kinuha ni Jovelin yung tear gas, ibinalik sa... Noon wala pang siyang CAFGO, CHDF pa. Paghagis niya balik ng tear gas, pumutok. Pagputok, sunod-sunod na. Instantly, mga 20 namatay, hundreds are wounded, may mga missing. So, after nang nangyari yun, naging malaking issue yan sa Negros. At para sa amin, sa cultural work, parang panaad na rin namin, parang nagkaisa kami na taon-taon hanggang walang klarong justisya, mag-reenact kami. At ang reenactment namin, nagbavary yan sa isang araw, 2 araw, 1 week, depende sa kapasidad. Kaya nga ina-emphasize ko yung NCCA support kasi that was only the time na 1 week talaga. From 15 hanggang 20, araw-araw yan. Punong-puno ng cultural activities na kahit yung CCP nga pumunta dito for that activity alone. So, at nag-gather ng iba't ibang groups from Mindanao, cultural groups at Manila.
Colonial Theater Guild started in 1990. Bahagi siya ng Colegio San Agustin Bacolod Performing Arts Scholarship Program. So una nakilala yung Colonial Theater Guild nung nag-join sila ng ikalawang tagpo sa CCP with a piece of Papa-issue, Tingog ng Kadamaan. Then right after that, so project with the NCCA na yung mga focus ng guild. Yung members ng Colonial Theater Guild is exclusive for CSAB only. So this is a scholarship program. So yung mga students in every course can apply, then can enjoy up to 100% of tuition fee. May training kami every summer. Then all members should renew their scholarship membership on every summer. Then may production kami first semester, second semester. So yun yung proseso namin hanggang sa makagraduate yung amin mga members. Right after kasi mag-graduate yung mga members namin, so naging problema yun, saan sila papunta? So yung ginawa namin, nagkaroon kami ng alumni na group. So right after nung membership nila doon sa aming guild, community-based theater na yung focus namin. Yung objective ng group, no, yung gusto namin ma-share yung influence ng theater. So kahit na hindi sila guro, kahit na they are a commerce or engineer, a nursing, yung teaching ng theater, yung discipline ng theater, magamit nila sa workplace nila, or they can also put up a community-based theater or sa corporate-based theater. So gusto namin ipalaganap yung theater group in all ages, in all places, in all workplace. Kasi yung training kasi ng theater, maganda in terms of discipline, respect.
sa mga tinugang ating buhat ni Bathala. Sa paglakas ang tiyempo, buhat ni tao ang mga butang wala na hiro ni Bathala. Hukpong! Maghukpong! Naghukpong! Ang tao nagkamo, kang nag-angkon sa malapat na kabutaan, sa kaduwang adlaw!
Ginagutom ako, kinahanglan sa malapad nga lugar para tamnan.
Kalibutan ang tao. Kinahanglan sa tao ang kalibutan.
Today, I filled my wrists with lines to count the number of times I thought of being shot in the head. They told me to roll up my sleeves. It was a sunny day. I picked out my favorite blue top. They said I looked like a clown. I smiled in pictures, twirling with shampoo commercial hair. I didn't shower that day. It's been 3 years since. 3. When they give you 3, they mean love. So here's a heart-shaped box of all the years I've chose to put origami out of journal pages. A locket of all the nights I slurred my words. A bouquet of mint cigarettes. I never meant to burn out myself. I've forgotten what it's like to feel. To be filled, to be fulfilled. Tell me what it's like to live, to strut, to heal. I can still feel the scabs, and they itch.
Musika ay lengguwahe ng kaluluwa. Tunog ng mga instrumento at mga tinig ng mga awit ang pinakawika. Katulad ng isang orkestra ang sangkatauhan. Lahat tayo ay may mahalagang bahaging ginagampanan.
The De La Salle Vivace String started as a small group in 2012. Previously, we were named La Salle Vivace Crossover Strings because we did crossover music with modern and classical ones until we became the University of St. La Salle's official string ensemble in 2013. We do original arrangements, and our members, I think they are very gifted in terms of in music, and then we also provide concerts, and most of them are outreach programs also. Many years from now, I hope that Vivace will become one of the leading ensemble not only in La Salle but in the whole province of Negros Occidental, and we can reach out to other communities because I think music appreciation, we really have to promote that, especially in rural areas where people have no direct access to music education, and I would really want Vivace to provide musical support to these communities.
meron akong aaminin. Bes, maaari ko na bang aminin? Bes, aaminin ko pa ba ngayong nandyan na siya? Masakit noong una, pero mas masakit pala yung araw-araw ko kayong nakikitang dalawa, talagang sa harap ko pa. Itong puso na nais lang maging bida, pero hanggang psychic lang talaga kung sa pelikula pa. At magtatapos yung eksena na heto ako nagdurugo, wala ng hininga. Subalit baka heto na, ang huling titig na sa'yo'y aking matanggap. Kahit ginagawa mo lang akong Google Map para lang siya mahagilap. Tuwing ginagawa mo akong hagdan para lang kayo magkakitaan, tawagin mo na lang kaya akong hagdan. Ang hagdang magmukhang timang, wag ka lang masaktan. Yung hagdang tanggapin yung inaalok mong love, kahit hanggang friendship lang. Sino ba naman kasi ako, di ba? Ako lang naman yung dakilang BFF mo. Best friend mo lang. Forever.
Pagsasayaw, sabi ng iba, ay isang anyo ng pagdarasal. Pag-indak ng katawan, higit pa sa isang pagtatanghal. Ito ay selebrasyon sa isang kakayahan, ekspresyon ng kaluluwa gamit ang katawan. Halimbawa ng tunay na pagsasanib ng katawan, pati kaluluwa.
My animo, my spirit was really modern dance. And in fact, it was Alice Reyes who showed me the future of and the beauty of dancing on bare feet. Decided to pursue choreography. So I went to London. I joined the London Contemporary School of Dance, and I studied there. I came back to Bacolod in 1994. When I got to Bacolod, I was given a job at the university as performing arts director, and I decided to inject some modern influences. And in fact, I wanted to inject different styles of dancing. And that's when I changed the name to the Jean-Baptiste Dance Company, and that was in 1999. We're not specializing in anything because that's how I wanted it to be in the first place. In this modern age, you need to sort of step away from the box and do something else and keep the interests alive, although the passion is obviously still traditional. When I was with the dance company, when I began the Jean-Baptiste Dance Company, I fought for scholarship because it's important that the student realizes that I can dance my way through college in the same way that a student would enter Juilliard and sing his or her way through school and become a famous singer. And I think now you can afford to say that I can be a professional dancer and make money with my talent.
Lahing matapang, lahing matalino, nalakbay ko ng mundo. Walang unos o bagyo sa aking gugupo, lahi ng matatag. Ako ay Filipino. Ako ay Filipino. Ako'y makadiyos. Ako ay Filipino. Ako'y makatao, saan man makarating, sino mang makapiling. Aangat ang galing habang buhay. Filipino. Filipino. Filipino.
Tumikot sandaang mga isla, magkakahiwalay ngunit nagkakaisa. Tahanan ng aming lahi, mga pook na aming ninimiti.
Puno ng kasaysayan, puno ng...
A 7.5 magnitude quake shook Western Visayas. Storms, flash floods expected during drought season. Reporting live for CNN Philippines. Prepare for the apocalypse!
Spread pestilence, Lord Sidapa. Goddess Macleum shall not be happy.
At the pinnacle of the skies, Sidapa, the Lord of Malevolence, and Macleum, the Duchess of Nature, spy on the world and all its creatures. a young lady named Mayumi faithfully caught the eyes of the spying spirits. Gosh, it's raining but the weather's too hot. Golly, the dumping site is still far away. Young lady, stop your littering. Soldier ants bite. Stop her. For me today. What's happening to me? Why am I shrinking? And with Macleum's enchantment, Mayumi became a piece of garbage. Off they went to different parts of land, water, and air, showing her how a garbage pollutes the earth.
Pelikula ay isang mahika, mga kwentong gumagamit ng imahe. Buhay at iba't ibang aspeto nito ay sinasalamin. Yan ang henyo ng sine. Dito sa lalawigan, isang paligsahe higit pa sa patimpalak. Mga pelikulang nililikas sa kultura ng bayan ay tumatatak.
Balisina Negrense is the Negros Island Film Festival. It was also started as an outcome of the Cinematheque being built here in Negros. So parang culminating activity siya ng Cinematheque Center. We started 2017 ang first namin na festival. It's composed of two components, a cinema conference and a short film competition. And the competition has two parts. The open category, which is for young amateur filmmakers, and the inter-school category, which is open to all students currently enrolled in the island of Negros. So ang mga entries na tinatanggap namin is, ang criteria is dapat Negros stories. So especially for the inter-school category, we always tell them that it has to come from you, the young filmmakers. What is your point of view for being a Negrense in this current times? And for the amateurs, we tell them to find their voice with their original stories. Pero kung pwede, yung kwento talagang Negros. I can see that we're really growing because of the number of submissions that we receive. So in the first year, I had to force people to really submit their films because they're hesitant that it might not be a long-term festival. This year, we had an interesting number of entries with very different themes. Like we have Buding, which is a parang magic realism.
Buding ang babae nga naglutaw. Buding is a person who is living by the sea, and 3 persons reported at the police station where they allegedly saw Buding floated in her bed. The film is spoken in Hiligaynon in Bisaya. Nailagay rin po namin yung mga religious culture dun sa city namin. Like the Vito Church, which is known for its wooden na palapak na culture na parang ganon. And then aside from that po, used locations po na you can usually be found in Sagay po. Number 1, Margaha Beach, which is known for its black sand na beach. My inspiration really was my mother because before nakunan din siya po, na miscarriage. So Buding has also a miscarriage in the film. Also talks about how to take care of the woman in the rural areas. And aside from that, it also talked about drug abuse.
And then there's Jameson, which we thought was a dark horse because it was almost like a documentary.
Jameson tells the life about Mr. Yu Kim Chong. He's my grandfather, and this takes place in the 1960s. Basically, it establishes the Chinese that arrives in Negros Occidental. He died, and I never got the chance to show him how much I loved him. So this film was initially just for the family, just so we can look back, this is how it feels like to be in our store at Jameson at downtown. I really hope to make films not in terms of genre, but more films that depict our culture here in Negros, not only in Negros but in the whole Philippines, because I think that is the only edge that we have against other countries. It feels so inspiring. It gives me a sign that I could do more. It gives me na even though that I'm just this small filmmaker, I could do a lot more with what I have and what I can put on the table.
Alam ko, ginasa ng bako, pinagtaka ng bakong Hindi mo po iintindihan. Hindi lang ako ang asawa ng Supremo. Hindi lang ako ang lakang binigan ka sa pinagposibilitan. Kaya huwag na huwag mo na ako tuluwag. Marami kang hindi totoo sa buhay ko rin ako. I lied about everything. I had to. Marami akong ginawa na kahit hindi ko. But I had to survive. Pero yun naman ang pinakamaligayang araw sa buhay ko.
Kung orkestra ay may konduktor, pelikula naman may direktor. Siya ang kapitan na gumagabay sa bisyon kung paano ang isang kwento maisa sa buhay at maisa sa anyo. Isa sa mga hinihirang na pangalan sa industriya ng pelikula, direktor na hinahangaan sa Negros Occidental nagmula.
Sumali ako sa isang theater group. Doon ko na-discover ang sarili ko na gusto ko talaga sa arts. So ang Negros Summer Workshop nagbigay sa amin ng opportunity, and then doon namin na-discover na gusto pala namin mag-filmmaking. Yung anong focus ng workshop na yon ay makamount ka ng pelikula. Kahit napangit o hindi, basta mamount mo ng pelikula. Yun lang yun. So actually nag-start talaga ako sa film production. Sa workshop nila ni Direk Peggy. So I decided to go to Manila para try. So that was in 2001. First ko talaga na sa filmmaking is through Direk Suad Castillo. So a friend of mine, si Ron Bryan, asked me na ganaps na ng second AD. Nang pumunta ako dito, akala ko ready na ako eh. Sa resume ko, I was directing for TV na in PBS Bacolod, acting and editing. Akala ko ready na ako. So, yun talaga yung challenge dito. Kailangan mo ng magandang kwento. Kailangan mo ng producer na maniniwala sa'yo na magaling siya, makapag-deliver yung filmmaker na to. As an artist, nag-evolve ka eh. Nag-evolve ka rin naman. Yung mga angst mo ng bata ka pa, hindi mo na mapapakita ngayon na medyo may edad ka na. Yung pag-intindi niya sa craft niya, paano niya kinikwento, nag-evolve talaga yan. The foundation na binigay sa amin ng mga teachers namin sa theater ay maganda. Okay. First, we were exposed at the early age sa acting. Para sa akin, ang isang director, malaking bagay na may experience sa acting. Kasi yun ang pinaka-core ng filmmaking din, is yung the actors. No? So kung wala yung actors mo at hindi believable, at ikaw mismo sa director, hindi ka believe sa pinapakita ng actors mo, magfe-fail yung film mo. Me, as an artist, as tao, no? Gusto ko lang ma-represent yung Bacolod na every time na gagawa ako ng something, ng isang artwork, is dala-dala ko yung Negros. Dala ko yung pangalan ng Negros, ng Bacolod. In a way, may duty ka na hindi pangit ang nire-represent mo. Kung ano yung tinuro ng lugar sa'yo, yun din yung ipapakita mo sa ibang lugar. Okay, nire-represent mo yung province mo. And then, sinishare mo yung passion mo, yung ethics mo, yung parang tinuro ng parents mo. So, yun talaga yung dream ko. Gumawa ng mga historical films. Hindi lang dito. Actually, mas gusto ko yung film, yung mga kwento sa Negros. Well, ang pinaka-challenging na pelikula na ginawa ko, I think yung Amok. Yun talaga yung pinaka-challenging. Kasi unang-una, mahirap talaga i-mount yung pelikula yun dahil nasa gitna ka ng major intersection sa Manila, which is Pasay. Tapos, very indie pa yung approach. I guess ang pinaka-important film is, for me, I guess yung Invisible. Because pinapakita yung side ng mga Pilipino kung ano yung kwento nila sa Japan. Kasi yun yung point namin na Parang, yes, they're heroes, pero they're struggling. Invisible sila. Invisible sila sa country na kung saan sila nagtatrabaho. Invisible din sila sa family nila dito sa Pilipinas. Because wala sila dun eh.
Kanya mga obrang nilikha, naging mga pamantayan at pantayog na pelikula. Iba't ibang genre, mula kasaysayan hanggang pantasya, sa loob at labas ng bansa, lalo na dito sa Negros Occidental. Siya di lamang direktor, siya rin ama, mentor at gurong minamahal.
Everything that I went into, from theater, TV, drama, and basketball, then slowly into movies, I started doing it slowly, scientifically, and really learning. I was born in Manila. I've been a Manila boy until high school. When I hit college, we moved to Negros permanently. I was growing up among the tubu, in the farm. Mayabang ako and snobbish. I was ashamed to have been brought to Negros. After 3 or 4 months studying and living the Bacolod way, I said, wait a minute, I am from here. This is my place. This is where I am from, and this is where I do my art. What I love about theater is you have this long period to put the action together, and so you're working on it, and as you work on it, you start adding little things, and you start taking off little things. So it was really great for me. I love that part of theater. With movies naman, it's the opposite. It's time again. What you want to do is capture that moment of time that's real, that moment of time that's the truth, to be able to capture that little moment of time. Just put the things together and it makes a whole story. So it's a different process, a different creative process that's taking place, and I love both. It has always been my desire. I want the audience to be aware that I want the Pinoys to understand the culture that they come from, the agricultural background that they came from. Also the idea of magic. I want the magic and the fantasy to be Pinoy, not to be a Walt Disney rip-off. We have to create our own look, which has to be Pinoy. One thing that always inspired me was the world is too big to change. If you want to make something happen, let your garden grow. Take care of your garden, and then later on you can start moving on, but make your garden grow. And Bacolod is my garden, no? I've always had a thing for Negros.
Sa mga nakalipas na yugto ng ating paglalakbay, lalawigay hindi man nasuyod kanilang halagapang kultura, sana'y tumatak sa inyong malay. Iba't ibang ganda at lakas sa kulturang Filipino'y kanilang naiambag. Hay mga hiyas sa lahing kayumanggi nagpapatatag. Ito ang Likhang Yaman ng Nagros Cultural Foundation.
Sa susunod na linggo'y dadako naman tayo patibog tungong Mindanao. Panibagong lalawigan, iba't ibang bayan ang ating dadayuhin para pasyalan.
Kaya kami samahan sa panibago na namang yugto ng Filipinong karanasan, pagdiriwang ng Filipinong kalinangan. Gawin ninyong linggo-linggong kaugalian. Ako si Lara Maige.
Ako naman si Akihiro Blanco at ito ang
Sagisag Kultura TV.
Ako ay Filipino, lahing matapang, lahing matalino, nalakbay ko ng mundo. Walang unos o bagyo sa aking gugupo, lahi ng matatag. Ako ay Filipino. Ako ay Filipino. Ako'y makajos. Ako ay Filipino. Ako'y makatao. Saan man makarating, sino mang makapiling. Aangat ang galing habang buhay. Filipino. Filipino.
Ikot sandaang mga isla, magkakahiwalay ngunit nagkakaisa. Tahanan ng aming lahi, mga pook na aming ninimithi.
Puno ng kasaysayan, puno ng hiwaga. Sa mga lugar na ito nakatanim ang ugat ng pagka-Pilipino. Ako ay Filipino. Ako'y makajos. Ako ay Filipino. Ako'y makatao. Saan man makarating, sino mang makapiling. Aangat ang galing habang buhay. Filipino. 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 Kami ang lahing kayumanggi mula sa buhaw ng langit at dagat. Mula sa pulang animoy dugo, hinalo sa dilaw na araw at bituin. Yan ang kulay ng katatagan, yan kulay ng kagitingan, buong kapang na sumisigaw. Yan ang Pilipino. Ako ay Filipino. Ako'y makajos. Ako ay Filipino. Ako'y makatao. Saan man makarating, sino mang makapili. Aangat ang galing habang buhay. Filipino. Filipino. Sabay dala ng pagkakataon o sadyang pinuot naging okasyon. Pagdiriwang ang aming kasiyahan, ipinagbubunyi ang kalayaan.
To look at many of our urban centers today is to look at how badly we've neglected the importance of urban planning. In Season 8 of Dayaw, we visit the old urban centers of Luzon to see how our ancestors maintained a sense of order. One that created spaces for communities, their economic and cultural activities, their daily lives. Indeed, the entire fabric of a solid, united community. This is Season 8 of Dayaw. Halina't dumayo, doon po sa amin. In Season 8 of Dayaw, we take a short breather from our documentation of the indigenous peoples of the Philippines. Instead, we visit the old towns in Manila and the rest of Luzon to see how Spanish colonizers planned the urban centers of a new, economically viable colony. Urban planning is neither a modern issue nor science. Our oldest cities were built following a specific plan, one that was enforced in all the colonies of Spain from the Pacific to the Americas. This template was known as the Law of the Indies.
The Law of the Indies was a framework for relations with the locals as well as a basis for the physical development of towns and cities, which is based on a grid focused on a central open space, which is the plaza. The adjustments to these laws happened over several centuries, from the 16th to the 17th century. The adjustments made were specific only to the topography of the sites. A lot of the towns and cities in the Americas were in the tropical region, so it's very similar to the Philippines, although we had more islands. So the pattern used in American towns in Mexico, in Peru, in Venezuela are very similar to the patterns used in the Philippines. All of the major towns and cities in the Philippines use the pattern of the grid or the quadricula and the open spaces, which are the plazas. So any town that has a plaza and a grid of streets in a checkerboard pattern is from the Spanish colonial era. And a lot of our towns and cities still have the central plaza and the open space plus the grid system of streets. The prime examples are, of course, Intramuros in Manila and Vigan in the north.
As an instrument of colonization and as a way of visually aligning new colonies into a homogeneous Hispanic identity, the Law of the Indies says much about the strategies of Spain in imposing its ordered view of the world upon its colonies. In Old Manila, we see how the colonizers shaped our own native culture and how our forefathers adapted to and survived the culture of the colonizers. For many of us, Intramuros evokes feelings of warm nostalgia. We see it as a symbol of an elegant Hispanic past. But Intramuros was, first and foremost, a manifestation of a colonial power. Economics, imperial policies, religion, and even segregation and ghettoism were reflected in the layout of this urban center that was a foremost bastion of Spanish colonial power in the Far East. Paulo Alcazarin ticks off the most vital areas in what the Spanish monarchs called the noble and ever loyal city.
Manila was developed along the banks of the Pasig River and facing the sea, which is Manila Bay. The original palisades of the Datus were taken over by the Spanish and a grid of streets were laid out. So Intramuros is a five-sided area of about approximately 60 hectares. The smaller sides defined a moat. So essentially, Intramuros was an island connected to the rest of the surrounding area by bridges across the moats. So this is the pattern for Manila, within which a grid of streets, blocks and streets defined the city inside, with two plazas or three plazas: the Plaza Mayor, which is the civic plaza, the Plaza Militar inside Fort Santiago, and a minor plaza towards the what is now the Parian. Of course, the major area to visit is Intramuros as a whole, which is defined by its walls and the grid of streets and open spaces inside. So the wall itself, you can walk around that. The central open space, or the center of the city, is Plaza Roma. Which is defined by the Ayuntamiento. The Palacio del Gobernador, and the Manila Cathedral. Fort Santiago, which is the fort that guarded the walled city. Any of the minor plazas in and around Intramuros itself. The Padre Burgos, if you walk all around Intramuros, you will see how it still is isolated from the rest of the city. Any of the bridges across, well, specifically the Jones Bridge, which replaced the Spanish era Puente España as a connection from Intramuros to Binondo, which was where the customs house and most of the business was carried out along the two muelles of our banks of the Pasig River.
Manila Bay and the Pasig River were vital to the growth of the city. Strangely, as you will hear, the port area was an innovation of the American colonizers and not the Spanish.
Most of the ships would dock in Manila Bay, and the goods were loaded into lighters or cascos and brought to the two muelles, where they were offloaded into the warehouses in Binondo or elsewhere, which would be the Chinatown today. Again, the places of interest would be the plazas, Plaza Santa Cruz, Plaza Binondo, or which is now Lorenzo Ruiz, originally Calderon de la Barca. Plaza Goiti was originally the center of Manila until the early 1960s, because Plaza Goiti was the point at which you referred yourself when you went to the center of business and commerce in Manila.
If Intramuros was a bastion of imperial power, then the arrabales, or suburbs, were the reflections of a more gentrified way of life.
The 5 arrabales around Manila, which includes Binondo, Santa Cruz, Quiapo, Arroceros, Ermita, and Malate. These were where the summer houses were, or where Hermitage, like for Ermita, was set up. Eventually, this was filled up with structures and houses.
After the Spanish, it was the American colonizers who further shaped the city beyond the boundaries of the stone walls of Intramuros.
When the Americans came in '98 and the ensuing war between the Filipinos and the Americans progressed into the 20th century, Manila was great, and its surrounding towns and cities were greatly affected. So the American authorities thought it best to replan the whole city, and they brought in Daniel Burnham in late 1904. He created a master plan for Manila in 1905, which had a connection to the port city of Sangli, because Sangli was where the American Navy was based. The American Army was based in Fort Santiago. The model for Burnham's Manila is actually Washington, D.C. The open space that Burnham found in the Luneta Park was turned by him into a civic center. So the civic center was to house all of the structures of government, just like Washington, D.C., with the Capitol, the National Mall, and the offices of government. The same pattern was used by Burnham in his plan for Manila, with the old Luneta turned into civic space, and modern Manila expanding in about 5 sections all around that center. He conserved Intramuros as part of the heritage, and each of the 5 quadrants, 5 sections of the city was to be developed in a density that extended the original grid of Intramuros into a more modern grid, which is in the pattern of the City Beautiful.
We now see Manila as a city that grew under specific visions of the Spanish and American colonizers. The city is not just a physical space, but a map of imperial visions, all without a doubt well-meaning and progressive, for their time at least.
Now, Burnham had projected the city would grow to 800,000 people, and that was the carrying capacity already set over 100 years ago. The streets and the street system that you see today are remnants of what originally was intended. It was never fully built out, and this street system for vehicular traffic was supported by a tranvia system that was expanded under the Americans. It was started in the Spanish period, in the late Spanish period, a franchise originally given to the Zobels, but taken over in the American period by a New York-based company. And the Manila Electric Rail and Light Company took over the tranvia system, which expanded all the way north to Navotas, all the way east to Pasig, all the way south to Caloocan, in a rail-based tram system that at its peak carried 7 million passengers a year. So Manila was a very walkable and accessible city because of this network, and the expansion of the city was based on this wonderful street and tram system. Unfortunately, not all of the street system was built. They were not able to consolidate enough land and divide it rationally. The tram system eventually gave way to jeepneys and informal systems of transport. And so what happened after about 4 decades was the Philippine government, already under the Commonwealth, decided to move the city in anticipation of the Declaration of Independence to Quezon City. So the Burnham Plan was never fully fleshed out. A lot of the network of streets were never fully built. The tram system on which it relied disappeared after the war, and it's only in the 1970s that the light rail system was reintroduced. And this system comes after the fact that Manila had already grown out into Greater Manila and now Metro Manila. And so what is happening is that these master plans, which were never fully built out, can never be brought back. And the master plans that were prepared in the late 30s, 40s, and 50s, about 6 major master plans, at each point were never fully fulfilled. So we are constantly trying to catch up with an ever-expanding city, and unfortunately, we're never successful.
Now more than ever, the experiences and lessons of the past may yet yield important clues for the future. Surely our city planners must take all these into consideration as they formulate new ways of furthering Dayaw, our knowledge, our pride.
Padayon